why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. So I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I want to apologize to Chris's family, specifically Tony Rock. We had a great relationship. Tony Rock was my man. And this is probably irreparable. I spent the last 3 months replaying and
What is going on, everybody? So, as usual, we got a lot to talk about as we address apologies and holding grudges and these challenges. But before we get started, Angela, what you got for us?
Okay, so basically, guys, we are on these platforms. It's social media platforms. First of all, we have Linktree, which has all of our links on there. But also, we're hosting our podcast on Podbean. Also, we're hosting our podcast on not just Podbean is just the main one. We got other ones that we have, like Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. And follow us, please, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch. Back to you, Chris.
So, as you heard in the earlier snippet or just a snapshot of an apology from Will Smith, he mentioned the word irreparable damage, and we were saying, what is that talking about? Also, we were thinking about, is that a good apology? Is that a bad apology? Or is that even some sort of apology? And then how would it affect the person? What ways it affect the person? Again, because we always think about these things are always connected to our, how we feel in our minds, our heart from an inner standpoint, and then of course our physical thinking and our physical effect, how it affects us physically. And then of course we were looking at grudges. How long does it take? When is it time to start saying, wait a minute, I think I'm at a point where now I'm holding a grudge?
Yes.
Or is it like, hey, I need, if I need a moment, I need a minute. A lot of people say I need a minute to process. And then most apologies are just forgiven. And there was actually this thing, if you don't mind, that I wanted to read about the art of an apology.
Yes.
And just a little snippet.
Let's hear that.
It talks about the 5 types of apology languages and how to choose the right one. Which to me alone is not. It's not like how to choose the right one. It's not even a matter of choosing, because you got to come from your own heart when you say it.
Yes.
And I have never. It said a lot of people heard of it, but I had never heard of this. So here's the 5 apology languages: are expressing regret, accepting responsibility, making restitution genuinely, and then genuinely repenting, and then requesting forgiveness. And I didn't even know that was like a system.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the 5 things you apply. And I'm just going to mention this one, expressing regret, and then we can go talk to.
Sure.
It says the first apology language expressing regret is the simple act of saying, "I'm sorry." While it sounds obvious enough, many people allow pride or guilt to get in the way of this kind of apology. Along with saying the words, "I'm sorry," Thomas says this type of apology involves listing the hurtful effects of your actions
Yes.
and showing remorse. It doesn't count if someone is only sorry that they got caught. And this is a blog from, just so I can give them their due, Jennifer Thomas. She has a PhD, and this is a blog that she wrote. And then the language system was researched and developed by a counselor and creator of the love language called Gary Chapman. He also PhD and psychologist
Okay.
that wrote this. And then just making sure also and the editorial of this complete thing was done by Abby Moore. That's the editorial. Man, there's a lot of people involved in this information. But
Yeah.
anyway, what's your thoughts, Angela?
Yes, I do believe that with those five items that you discussed, that they are pivotal for someone that's on the other end receiving that to be forgiving of the person. So I think that is very important to go over those and to think about that before you go to someone that you've hurt really bad, and just think about some things that you're going to do. And I think those are good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what you mean, what they said about it.
Yeah, as
those
far as
five things.
Yeah, those 5 things that.
Okay.
Yeah, I really think that is good to do.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree, but I think too that it's good as if those happen naturally.
Yeah.
Not if someone decides, oh, I got to remember what's the 5 things? You get what I'm saying? It's one of those things where, yeah, it would be good if it did happen that way and they could implement all those things, but it doesn't have, it'd be nice, I guess.
But you're talking about an art of an apology, and some of those things even mentioned when you're talking about, so of course you're talking about restitution. Every apology doesn't get a restitution, but basically we're talking about being sincere, being in your, not only in what you say, but in your action as well. Someone can really, if someone did something to you, you can tell whether they are sincere in their apology, because sometimes, be honest with you, and we discussed this before, that is not something easy to do. You can actually see it in their actions and how they say it, and also in their facial expression when they're talking to you. And sometimes when people apologize, sometimes they cry because they're realizing how much they hurt you, and they're very sorry that they did that. And also the simple fact to know that they cannot do anything to take that back, especially if it's really bad. Of course, you guys saw the Will Smith apology. He really did something bad to Chris Rock. Not only that, but it's like, just imagine you did something to hurt someone and the whole world knows about it. And the whole world's talking about it. It's trending. I mean, it's just so much that was done. But basically, yeah, I think that once it's done, I think with those 5 items that you listed or that you quoted from the blog, that even though it doesn't resonate with every apology, but either 1, 2, or 3, if not all, will help. I think it will help.
Yeah, I think the biggest one of all is, and this is probably the toughest thing for just about any of us, is being able to kind of say a remark specifically part of why the apology is even happening.
Right.
And that's probably sometimes where it gets tricky, because we may be able to say part of why the apology happened, but then sometimes, and I think it even happened in the apology with Will Smith, that it got to where it became a little bit about him.
Yes.
And we didn't show that part. I didn't even want to look at that. That was interesting. But yeah, sometimes people can flip it. They can apologize, and then in the interim of apology, somehow they became the victim. Or in the interim of apology, they'll apologize and then add some foolishness, add something to just that has nothing to do with the apology, or to try to make the other person look bad, or something to make it just kind of just not leave it as an apology.
Right.
And that's tough to do.
It is.
So, yeah.
I guess the thing to really think about is before you do anything, if you're upset, before you do anything, think about it before you act. And just know that these next steps that you're about to take, whether it's verbally or physically, that it could stick with this person for life. To where even if they forgive you, with some people it never leaves their mind because you did it. You done it to them. You said it to them. So that should be enough to kind of stop some people in their tracks. So I think that just being having what you call it, being mindful of that, being patient, and being aware, plan for this, because some people are, how can we say it? They got a hot temper, temper flares off really quick, and then here they are later on down the road thinking, okay, I could have handled that better, So,
also let me ask you, and besides, I don't think me and you have ever had what I'm going to ask you, but maybe outside of the scope, and we're not going to mention any names or any situations. We're not going to try to rehash any negative stuff like that, but can you think of a time where someone directly said they will not forgive you, or they did not apologize when you thought maybe there's apology here somewhere, and they didn't apologize with no justification? So what I mean on that second one is they didn't apologize, but sometimes people say, no, I don't think so, and they'll explain why. But you may have some that say no, and they don't even explain why. They don't justify it, which is very interesting. The first one is even rare. Like, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember a person just telling me they won't forgive me.
Right.
But I don't know. Have that ever happened to you?
No, I haven't heard, and I don't remember anybody telling me that they, I'm not going to forgive you. And I haven't had anyone really, really haven't had those situations happen now. What I have happened is, but I think that somebody should apologize and they didn't. It didn't come.
Yeah,
it didn't come. Or it's I know, and it's hard for some people. And sometimes people don't say it. Now, I had a lot of that. They don't say it, but in their actions, you can tell that they're sorry.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Yeah, so.
And I'm okay with that.
About that, what do you think about those apologies you don't get, but in verbally, but you get in their actions?
Well, I initially, of course, I don't like them because I don't know what's going to happen later, okay. And so initially, you're still a little bothered or upset about it, and it depends on. I'm gonna be honest. Y'all know it depends on who it is. You would like to say, hey, everybody's equally treated, but there's some people that you like your mate or somebody that you're gonna handle that a little differently from some, let's say, kind of friend or something like that, or maybe somebody in passing, where you'll let it slide even easier,
right?
So and plus too, if it's later that the person comes back, a lot of that depends on how they showed it after that, because then, man, sometimes a person can show they're sorry without saying anything, but they are so good at showing in their actions that they're sorry that you forget what the issue was, because it just was treat you so loving and nice and kind, and just you don't even know what we good.
Yeah, because I would say this too, you got to consider a person's background. Did they grow up in a household where how did they apologize in their own home? Where did they grow up, or they were taught to do? They some people are just different. So basically, if someone is doing that type of apology by their actions, that's just what they're comfortable with. So it's like, or some people grow up not apologizing. They just they forget, and they get amnesia of the bad stuff they did, and just moving on. And then when you bring it up to them, I did what now? Huh? What? I did what? What are you talking about? Amnesia. But anyway, I said what? You said I said what?
Yeah, that's true. Or they'll be like, if you try to remind them, they'll get offended as though you're doing something very bad, just to kind of like, hey, remember?
Yeah.
And then you have somewhere just the two parties remember something differently.
Yes.
And somebody got to figure out, for the sake of peace, like, okay, well, it's the way you say it, because otherwise we're gonna run up in another disagreement.
Yeah, and also too, you got to take into consideration some things that were done to them. I'm telling you, some stuff is hard, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't warrant an apology or forgiveness. It just means that some things take a little bit more time in some situations to forgive. Even so if someone did something really terrible to someone and they just don't want nothing to do with you, even all the apologies that you've done, the 10, 1,200 apologies, you just got to give it time. You haven't given it time, so give it more time. Time does heal a lot of things, I would say, in regards to those situations, because people have gone through a lot, so you got to be respectful of them, of their feelings, and make it to where there is an environment of, at least that they would, say they're sorry. Right now, to be honest with you, with that Will Smith apology, I like I said on the past episode, is that I don't think Will gave it enough time. He did not give enough time for Chris to heal, because Chris still feel a certain way about this. People still bringing this stuff. When you look at Chris Rock, you look at him and you're thinking about that slap. So he don't want to be known for being slapped and the feelings, all the things that came with that. But I do think that they will rectify the relationship down the road. But I think that Will needs to give it time, and he needs to give more action showing that he's sorry for it, because right now it just looks like, well, what you think?
Well, that comes back to the other side of it. How long does this so-called give it much time take before it looks like a grudge is being held?
Well, I would say
it was a week, because time has kind of went by now. It's not. It wasn't the other
3
day.
months, but
it's only been 3 months. Did you not find funny that sound?
Yeah,
it's only been.
But you know
3
what?
Months.
I would say that
it's only been 1/4 of a year.
Just think about it. We're not in Chris' body to know what all the things that he felt.
Yeah.
And we're not in his ears to know all the things that he's heard from everybody, even his comedian buddies that want to go and fight for him, So it's a lot going on there. I think a little bit of time. And I do think that once because I'm going to be very positive and optimistic in this, once they heal that relationship, that should be something that's going to be inspiration for us all to look at, because this was something that was very hurtful to Chris. And to see that if he accepts the apology and just move on, I think that'll be a good thing.
Well, you got to remember too, the good thing about, I don't know what part is good, but the good thing I think about the situation on Chris Rock, because I'm playing it on both sides. Mm-hmm. Chris Rock camp said, hey, he'll reach out. They never said, hey, listen, man, forget it, let it go. He ain't gonna forgive you.
Right.
You need to move on with your life. So that's a positive.
Right.
And again, as we talked about, it's so many things involved, because it's the situation. Yeah. It's the two parties involved. Mm-hmm. It's the background.
Right.
And we know that Will Smith's background, he had an abusive dad. He had challenges with the family. True. And then Chris Rock expressed his background about bullying and things like that. Which so there are certain aspects of both of their lives that, of course, was a challenge. Especially no matter what we say as young people or as adults, when anything that happened to us as young people, yes, we move on. We can be stronger from it. We can learn from. We can do amazing things regardless of all kind of interesting things that happen to us when we're young.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that somewhere in there that didn't mold certain parts of who we are.
That's true.
And try as we might, sometimes those things bring itself out in how we deal with stressful situations.
And that's true. That is true. Yeah, you got to consider all that, the background, the things you went through, and the fact that we know that Chris has things that he dealt with, and also Will too, that constitutes there, or that kind of shows how they both reacted to it. But also keeping in mind too, Chris has family. He has his kids, so it's like, think about they're watching their dad on TV being slapped on a very popular, show on the Oscars. So, a lot of that stuff ran through his mind. But guess what? It wasn't running.
Do you have grandkids?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't. You know what? I should say I don't know.
Yeah.
I know. All I know is about those.
the
two younger kids that he has, but I'm not sure if he had grandkids. But just think about it. That his grandkids still can see it. That things last for years. Things don't go away. But just know that one person that probably wasn't thinking about it till later, that was Will Smith. He wasn't thinking about all of this. He probably like, oh yeah, justice. You said this about my wife, and I had a right to do this. But I'm sure that type of thinking is not there.
Yeah, that's true. I believe that.
Yeah.
You're making a true statement. But again, it comes back to us as people, which is what Angela and I really wanted to continue to focus on, is that no matter what we dealt with as individuals, there are some catastrophic things that happens to us, and some individuals can cause them. Yeah. And we got to decide how we're going to handle them. Mm-hmm. There's no one person that's going to tell you how to handle something that has impacted you directly. But there are factors that we all have to weigh, and that's how we cope with it, how much help we get, what kind of people we have around us. How does this impact me, from me being an adult to something traumatic that it released or maybe triggered back when I was a young person? Mm-hmm. All these factors have to be weighed, and then we have to decide how are we gonna allow that to mess up our mind and impact us on a daily. That's really what it's all about. Anything that happens, transgression against us, do you let that continue to impact your daily life? Usually if a person has forgiveness in their heart and forgives, they don't allow things to impact them on the daily life. It's very difficult to say, I hold a grudge against someone, but I'm fine. Those two don't really mesh that well. Now, it's sometimes you can forgive, you are able to forgive, but decide that I will keep a caution with a human being like that. And I'll be very careful, especially when it's a person that's done some really high level things on a consistent basis. Me and you were talking about that.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say too, and thinking about that, every situation is different, because I wouldn't say the crime, or I don't know how to say, whatever the action that the other person did to hurt you, it depends. And also, if there's a pattern, sometimes there's a pattern of things that were done, when you like, what, this needs to stop. Let me let me do things. Let me protect myself. Let me create a situation where this needs to stop, because I need to heal, and I don't need someone to overly, over and over again to hurt me and to keep me from my healing point. Or I need to do something or create an environment for myself to make sure that this stops. Because self-care, self-healing, you making sure that you are okay is so important, because whoever it is can really what they're trying to do is mess you up mentally, but you got to make sure that you don't allow that, but also do it in a peaceful way, because sometimes we can do it and it could cause more problems. But I do think that depending on what it is and what's done and how often the validity would really say, whether that apology or the acceptance of the apology is going to come right away, if it comes or whatever. It just depends on the situation and the person. Because some people do have some issues, I tell you, that probably just we can't resolve. That professional may need to step in to help, the other person.
But you know what? Sometimes deciding if us, that's where things get tricky.
Yes.
So you saying apology, and we both know that sometimes apology comes right away. Sometimes apology may take a minute to come, but sometimes that's something that has to be weighed. Like, say a person say, you know what, right now I'm just going to give them their space.
Yes.
But then the person that they're giving the space to may say, man, they didn't even apologize. You get what I'm saying? Or you may say, hey, I'm sorry, whatever. And then the person that's, hey, man, just give me some space. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
So it can be slippery, slow. I think the best thing to do is when a person that's, first of all, I think to me, either person I give them kudos for a person that's able to forgive and kudos for a person that's able to apologize, no matter how minor or big that apology is.
Yes.
Because we took a test today with some members of the family, and I asked we all say, who all of you out of us is easy to apologize, comes easy for you, and not one person raised their hand.
Right.
Now, why do you think that is?
Because when you're saying that, you think about pride. We all have pride within ourselves and admitting that we're wrong. But also, some of us don't know how that apology is going to be taken or if it's going to be accepted. It's like you feel like you're putting yourself out there.
You're putting yourself.
Yeah.
That's the key.
You got to be humble, and that's another thing. When you try to have to apologize, you got to be you have to be humble about it. It's like you're really kind of going here and like, okay, let me apologize. You just feel, and also too, you feel that if you apologize, you're saying that person was right. Because as soon as they'll go back and say, well, they apologized to me, so they must be wrong. That's not the case.
Yeah, and it to be able to apologize. This is what you're saying. Okay, when the person you may ask, what does that mean? They're admitting the person right. So what the person's right? There is a pride involved in that. It's a very prideful situation for the person, and the person may say, okay, you right, I'm sorry. Now, a person that's able to do that is humble. If you got that quality of, doesn't mean you have to be a person that's not strong-minded, have courage. In fact, it actually means you're just as courageous. You're a really strong person if you can have humility. And that's humility on either side, because it takes humility to seriously accept an apology, and it takes humility to genuinely apologize. And so just to connect everything, remember this: when there's a struggle and someone's hurt you or affected you mentally, again, it affects you physically, because it'll start affecting the way you eat, the way you think, the way you feel. Your routines can get messed up because there's some grudge you're holding, some apology that hasn't been made, some misunderstanding, some big issue. And so you have to be able to make peace with this. In fact, you have to be able to think, whether you've been a transgression against you receiving or giving, have to forgive, or you have to make the apology. You are able to keep a peace with these people.
Yes, so I would like to also say too that when you're not holding a grudge, just like you said, your health is better. And guess what? You're not thinking about this constantly. When you're holding a grudge, you're thinking about negative stuff. And you gotta just say, hey, I don't want that, I don't want no part in that. So just do what you gotta do and just move on with your life. Everybody just move on. And I do really think that when you do that, you're the stronger person. It like we said, it's not easy to apologize. It just shows how much of a strong person you are. So keep those things in mind and think how healthier you would be, how much peace of mind that you would have when you have to or when you need to apologize to someone to make the relationship better or just to kind of move on, period.
Very good, Angela. I like that.
Thank you.
So speaking of peace, I think that's something we might dive into next week. And how that affects you, again, mentally and physically. How is it all connected?
Yes.
Peace and the pursuit of it, and just trying to have it, or what we think our perception of peace versus, another person's and all that thing. So I think that's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I totally agree. I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Guys, it's been great. Been amazing.
Yes.
Hope that you were able to benefit from this. And hey, listen, I think we'll do it again next week.
Yes.
And it'll be part of Chris and the amazing, wonderful Angela.
Yes.
On the Spice.
Oh. Oh.
Whoa, whoa.
Life.